Welcome to the Superintendent's Podcast. I can't believe we still have this going.
I know.
And, credit where credit's due to the team at WCAT. I don't think people know this, but it's not, and I don't mean this as an insult to the three of us, it is not us who organize this. Mm-hmm. Credit to Ian and the WCAT crew who will send us reminders and say, hey, we haven't had a meeting. We think the public needs to know what's been going on. Do the three of you want to get together this week or the next coming week? So kudos to them for keeping this going, and hopefully it keeps going well into the future.
Absolutely.
All right, so speaking of, it seems like we have a pretty good format. Let's start with what have we missed since last time we've talked, and then we'll talk about some major issues and go into the future.
Sure. March is really about the budget. You can look in the newspaper and see districts and municipalities across the state are all trying to reconcile how they're going to close out this year and how they're going to plan for the upcoming year. Obviously, we've talked about this several times here in the podcast, just about with the cost of labor and with a new teaching contract, there's going to be a little bit of a boost in the proposed budget that we made. And so the week before last at school committee, we presented a proposed budget. It's really a draft budget for FY25. And so we in the proposal we budget for what is known and really keep a close eye on what are the escalators or the cost, what are potential cost increases, right? And so right now, in the budget that we proposed, we are highlighting the new teacher contract, right? That is a big part of the FY25 budget, and rightfully so. We're pleased that, again, we have a tentative agreement, not yet ratified. Just a quick update there, not yet ratified, but we're anticipating that in the coming weeks it's going to be ratified, and so that's a very positive thing. But in the FY25 budget, we are highlighting and really forecasting the increased costs in special education, the increased costs and the increased population in our English language learner population. And so it's a little tricky because ESL, English as a second language, became ELL, English language learner, which became EL, English learner, and now is multilingual learner. It has become ML. Long story short, what it is are some of our students and families, they don't speak English as their first language at home. When students are coming into school, we do a home language survey. And if the home language survey indicates that they need support, we provide that support as needed. And so that's, with the increase there, that's a budget driver. Special education is a budget driver. But we're also really looking very closely at what we have and what we've started to build. So Kara and her team have done an amazing job with the curriculum build out. We have a new literacy program, which other districts have not yet made the change. And so Kara and her team were able to accelerate that change due to a grant that we secured early. So I feel like we're where we need to be, maybe a little ahead of the curve there. But between all these commitments, we proposed a 5.5% increase this year, which we feel we know it's high. We know it's a lot. And so, but we do also are acknowledging that this is what it costs to run a school system now. So we are, if you look at our neighboring districts, we're probably in the lower half of what a lot of our neighbors are asking for increases. A number of our neighbors have had the challenge of needing to make cuts. And that's something that we are really...
Stoneham right now.
Stoneham, Melrose, to mention a few, not to single them out, but it's a real challenge, right? So when districts overcommit financially, it really puts us at a disadvantage. And one of the things that has kept us in a very positive stead is Steve Mayo and the financial forecasting that he has done. So the very quick is in regard to the budget. Last week, we proposed the budget. This week, we had a public budget hearing. Next week, this coming Tuesday night, we will have a school committee meeting. And one of the things on the agenda is to answer any questions that school committee might have or continue to have, make any edits that that are proposed that we might be able to afford, and to really and to make a motion for the school committee to accept the proposed budget. Also, in the interim week in between the proposed budget and the motion to accept, we met with FinCom to answer their questions as well. And that's, we always appreciate their support. It's never an easy conversation with FinCom because they are about debits and credits and keeping us in a good financial situation, which again, I think contributes to Steve Mayo's leadership and kind of the health of the town financially. But that's where we are. That is not a quick update. But
yeah, I was going to say, one of the big things we were going to talk about was budget. Way to just totally take that topic off the table, Doug.
So yeah.
But it's a good point, and I guess we'll go off the agenda a little bit, but I do want to mention, I've seen it when you have to make cuts, and it's a totally different dynamic in the conversation because when you're doing, I think, your regular budget process, you are building a better school department. When you are making cuts, the mindset is, how do I make things least worse? And what I tell people is, you have to remember, this is not like a business. A lot of people like to compare schools to, run it like a business. Well, with the business, you are making a certain number of widgets or things or services or whatnot. With a school, a student only has that experience once. So if you've made it worse that once, there is a trailing effect. So I think we're very happy, or at least I am as a taxpayer and resident, that the discussion is still how do we keep continuing to build a better school system. With that said, one of the other updates then, and I guess one of the other agenda items was the calendar, the school calendar that came up.
Yep.
And what are we looking forward to, I guess, in the upcoming calendar?
So we drafted, we shared a draft of the calendar in the last school committee meeting as well. And Kara's been instrumental and kind of the architect and kind of working closely not only with school committee, but also the WEA in that. I turned it over to you, Kara.
I think it was, we've been working on this for a little bit. It's coming out a little bit later than normal. We had to be mindful of teacher negotiations and the fact that the tentative agreement has some shifts to the calendar, specifically as it relates to professional development half days. You'll see in this calendar there's 8. In the tentative agreement, we're looking at 5 half days for professional development. And it was just an opportunity, just based on feedback internally, looking at childcare demands, trying to be mindful of family scheduling. We were looking to do something a little bit different heading into next year, and wherever we can attach the half days to a weekend, to either a Monday or a Friday is going to be our goal. We're working out some last minute kinks there, but we think that will help. We think it will help parents with childcare as opposed to a middle of the week half day and disruption.
Well, that makes sense, yeah, because that would be hard. Now, would that have an impact? I know this is kind of I don't want to say a minor issue as compared to a bigger school system, but there was a discussion about election day and professional development in the school being used. Will that have an impact?
Well, I think the election day piece is something that we need to work, to continue to share the space with the voters. It's something that we'll continue to talk about, especially looking ahead to the town election that will happen in April, around just coming up with better ways to split the parking, to manage where teachers need to be, but also sharing space for voters. I don't think right now, voting is always on Tuesdays. It doesn't really impact the professional development days other than when we call school off on an election day. So we have we've kind of worked out that if it's a larger election, national, larger state election, that we won't have school. But the town election in April, we feel like we can have school that day.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad to say, right? I don't mean this in a bad way, but the facts are the facts, right? The town elections don't. Unfortunately, not as many people turn out as we would like.
Yeah. And it was kind of inconvenient having it be the Tuesday after April vacation, just kids just coming off of the vacation and then having another day off. So
the kids wouldn't mind, though. I will tell you, the kids were hoping.
They won't ever mind.
So if the kids can get their parents to vote, they could probably get that day off. It would be a win-win if the young people can encourage their families to vote.
Exactly. So
Yeah, I again, Kara mentioned this. We share so that the town had made a purposeful choice, right, to get away from the smaller polling stations, to kind of go to Galvin, or to use the schools. So Galvin now, hopefully the high school in the future. The reason is very simple: accessibility, parking, and just the ability to have one polling location instead of managing several satellite sites, right? So it's more cost effective, it's more accessible. But as Kara mentioned, we have to really look at, especially coming into the presidential election, we have to look at parking and how we're going to need to make adjustments there, and what we're planning during those voting days.
But yeah, so that, and just to answer your question, because the half days don't necessarily involve, but you're correct. So November 5th will be tagged as a professional development day for the district. So we'll have to really think carefully about
Because that'll be mine. It's a presidential, so it's going to be mobbed.
Absolutely.
So, no, on that point, I mean, I think for the town elections, my unsolicited opinion too, I guess the people of Wakefield, if they ever wanted to do it, would be, I don't think there's a reason why we couldn't move town elections, unless it's in the charter, and I don't know, but to weekends. I'm a big believer of just doing it, kind of like we did the overrides or debt exclusions, just do the election on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Nobody's using the building, and it'd be easier for some families who live and work, especially in Boston, to be able to get to polling in time.
That would be great. I know Betsy Sharon has also created early voting.
Oh yeah, that's huge. I mean, that's what we do. Me and my wife do.
Enormous, right? It is. So it's increased accessibility, and I think it's increased numbers. So I think that move was really great. But we're looking closely at, different ways to not only support the town, but also we want to try to operate schools as much as possible with the least disruptions as possible, right?
Well, yeah.
And so that's also that's the balance in this.
Well, I agree. It's funny. I was reading the article about like the election day stuff, and a part of me, I mean, does say, well, the purpose of the school is to educate. But with that said, there is a very practical concern of, if you're going to have, again, I hate that it's not the town elections, but on the November elections, for example, you're going to have, a few thousand people show up all throughout the day.
Yep.
Something needs to happen.
Yeah.
Even when there's no election parking, there is atrocious.
Right.
So
Most of the lot is full every day. Yeah.
Exactly. But any other peaks? I know I kind of pivoted off the purpose, but any other things in the calendar?
Yeah, so I think those are the big. Again, we're still collaborating with WEA and school committee and administration, just trying to get last minute feedback. So we're hoping, in terms of timeline, it is later than normal that we haven't finalized the calendar, but we're hoping by the middle of April we should have a final version of the calendar out to families. We're thinking, I think it's pretty safe to say we're looking at September 5th as a first day for students. We have Labor Day is a little bit early this year, so we're looking at 2 staff days, the 3rd and the 4th, and then kids starting that Thursday. Trying to picture it in my head, Thursday, Friday. So that's where tentatively we are.
Yeah, so a couple of things that are super important to note, and so this calendar is, I would argue, is going to be markedly better in regard to less disruptions. So you used to see like the month of November, and it would be just color-coded days where either half days or the conferences or this. And so we've worked collaboratively with the WEA, and Kara's, again, kind of taking the lead on this. And I think the calendar is markedly better. Not only is it better, I think, for students and families, it also will increase student contact time. So it'll increase instructional time in the course of the months and years of the school year, right? So that's one of the changes that we've made in the new contract. And so we feel like that's really a plus for kids. That's going to be a real benefit, and something we've been working on for a little while, and we're very pleased to have it represented in this calendar. Again, the calendar is still a draft. We're still working on it, but that's the direction that we're going. The other thing that we're going to see moving into 25 is that we'll see probably an earlier start in the school year.
So how early do you think?
Well, we're thinking if, again, tentatively agreed to, that our 2 staff days that we typically have in the beginning of the school year can happen that last week of August before Labor Day.
wow.
So that would help prompt the student day to be 2 days earlier. So we would be looking at the Tuesday after Labor Day.
And then when
For
would
a
the
student
release be then for summer?
So it'd be 2 days earlier than normal. Yeah, so probably, however it falls, just more better in that mid-June range with no snow days. But the winters have been so
No,
unpredictable.
it's true. It's
Yeah.
true. And then with that said, I think, we talked about the budget. We talked about the calendar. I think those are the 2 big things since last we met.
Yep.
But the other part is, so what's coming up? What do we have to look forward to?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're really trying to work on here at the high school, and Amy McLeod is kind of taking the lead on this, is really trying to create internships and opportunities for kids. And so this is something that Amy was really trying to champion pre-COVID. We had COVID, things kind of flattened out. And now we're really trying to connect to businesses and understand how our students might be able to participate in an internship at either local companies, both small and large. And so the week before last, I made a visit to Validate. It's Valid with an 8. It's Ian and Winnie Carpenter.
Cool.
It's their business, and so it's a network engineering solutions company that create test kind of platforms for the telecommunications industry. And we've had several students go through there and work there and do internships there. And so we feel like just visiting locally and learning kind of what are opportunities for kids, and also sharing the experiences that students have. So there were 2 students that were there when we visited, and one ended up going because he had learned that it was an opportunity from a friend. They had common interests, and they're there, and they're doing great. We also saw one of our alum who's in college and is an engineering major and is crushing it. So
That's awesome.
So we're thinking big and small. Today, I went with a group of superintendents to MITRE in Burlington, and we're really getting back to thinking about what are we teaching kids in classes? How does it relate to what they're going to be asked to do in the job place? We're talking more and more about this, and so. And the more we can kind of look at the curriculum so we have what they call a digital literacy and computer science curriculum standards, but they are, because they're not part of the mass core, they often get squeezed to the margin, right? So they're not kind of given the space and time that we think they should be given. So that's something that we're going to be looking at as well. So between visiting sites and trying to think about internships and opportunities for kids, that's something that we're doing real time as well.
No, and you bring up a good point because I don't want to get too off topic of the Wakefield Public Schools, but a general education question is literally right before this, I was talking to an educator about this. We were talking about AI and some of the things that AI can do.
Yeah.
You're really talking about like the automation of automation, everything from editing videos to doing code to things that used to be skill sets that we would push out being automated, so that there's going to probably be a much larger emphasis on liberal arts where there wasn't, because if a machine can do some of these more monotonous jobs, well, now it's going to be up to you on how to think creatively and how to problem solve creatively. And now that you have the ability for a machine to do X, Y, Z, what can you do? And we were even talking about everything from if a computer can now watch a meeting on YouTube and you press enter and it can spit out an article that tells you what happened, well, now it's the columnist that's needed more, right? And it's the ability to create opinions and to think and to challenge. And it's going to be so interesting on how the world works. That was just, by the way, that has nothing to do with anything other than let's just.
So this is a big deal for us, right?
Yeah, but how
And so
profound was I just then, by the way? Was I not?
We're going to have you in a classroom yet, Anthony.
I know,
We'll
it's true.
have you in a classroom sooner than
If you
you're
need
gonna
me
know.
to be a superintendent or curriculum director, just for like a day, I'm down.
I think, that would be great. That would be, I can jump into the math classroom or science
Yeah.
classroom again, and you could be superintendent,
Yeah, I mean,
substitute
it's all
for a
good.
day. That'd be great. I'm sure that would shake things up
Yeah.
a little bit, right? But yeah, in terms of AI, it's you're right. Like, so these AI devices, these large language models, these LLMs that scrape the internet for information and then compile it in ways to produce new information that then is also part of the total LLM package that's rescraped and used again to create new content, right? So AI has this amazing potential to be generative. But what a limitation that really no one's talking about is, to initiate how to use it, right? That's done by human beings. To provide application and to oversee how it's used, that's all done and is going to be needed. We're going to need humans to do that, right? So this idea that we're heading into the 2025 and it's like the Jetsons. I don't know if people know who the Jetsons are, but
no, they live on Cedar, right?
Yeah, so funny. And so but we're very much talking about how to bring AI into the schools and into curriculum instead of locking it out. This is anytime there's a new technology that people are threatened by, it's like lock it out, get it out. But we also need to learn from other things that have happened in the past. Social media came in and people were like, embrace it, let it in, and we let it in, and for a lot of time it's gone unchecked. And having it gone unchecked, there's been a downside to the overuse and the isolation of students, and I'm just scratching the surface there, of the effects of social media. But so what I'm saying is, so AI is an important thing that I think we need to learn about, that we need to learn real time about how to teach about it and how to create kind of checks and balances on it. But that's where we are.
Well, yeah, and to tie it back, the way you do that and the way you learn it in real time is by building those partnerships and those internships, because then you see how it's being used in businesses. Right. I mean, I can even give you an example. I know a small business in Wakefield that literally was telling me all their job descriptions now is AI. They write what they want and then they do it, and they're like, oh yeah, it takes them 10 seconds now. They say, hey, this is the position we're looking for. Can you give me a job description?
Yeah.
It spits out a job description. All of a sudden they look at it, looks good, make maybe some edits, post it on Indeed. So what's now more important for anybody they hire in human resources is not that ability to create job descriptions, but the ability to interview and the ability to find a culture fit and the ability to talk to people.
Right.
So it's pretty incredible. Anything else we have to look forward to? I mean, I'm sure in life we do, but...
Yeah.
Well, we're doing some curriculum work.
Yeah, we have, this whole year we've been doing a science curriculum review, K through 12, just to assess where we are in terms of our science education. And that, science is one of the really big target areas for the building of the new high school, just having more up-to-date labs. And so we're trying to do all of the curriculum work to be in really good shape once that time comes. Joanne Marks is our science curriculum coordinator, along with Lindsay Mosca at the elementary level. They've led the curriculum review for the past year. So they're going to give an update at school committee on Tuesday about where we are at this little past midpoint in the year.
No, that's wonderful. And it's fun. I actually made a volcano with my son for the first time of the day. Baking soda and vinegar. Showed him how it works. Yep.
Yeah.
We did.
So
Actually, don't mind embarrassing myself. So what I did was, what Instagram... Pros of social media, you learn way more arts and crafts. But a way to decorate eggs, they said, you mix baking soda with some paint. You paint the egg with that baking soda paint, but then you drop it in vinegar, and it makes a really cool effect on the egg.
All right.
So I did that. Now here's the key. You were supposed to use like acrylic paint or something. I used like finger paint that's washable. Did it. It's cool. Came out. And then I'm like, all right, let me rinse off the extra paint off. Everything came off.
Yeah.
No.
So I'm like, all right, well, we're going to have to
Try
do this again.
again.
So, but no, I don't know if there's anything else or if we're missing anything, but...
Yeah.
I feel like once we get to this point in the year, there's definitely, we'll have MCAS coming up.
True.
At all of the schools, that's coming up. And then we really dig into plan, through the later part of the spring, we really try to get ahead of some planning for the following school year. We'll be planning out professional development. We'll be planning out, just kind of looking at schedules. That's always a big thing. But yeah, a lot of prep and planning.
Well, it's much, might be a little bit late now, but let me ask one last question before we wrap up, because I don't know why that just reminded me of it. but probably right now. All right, so if you are the parent of a kindergartner, what should you prepare for? But I'll flip it all the way on the other side. If you're a parent of a senior in high school, what should you prepare for?
I'm going to the emotional side of things.
Yeah.
I mean, other than the tears, because I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're a kindergarten parent, if you're a new kindergarten parent, if you're a returning parent, you're a veteran, and every time's different because every child is different. But if you've entered the Wakefield Public Schools once, it's only gotten better, right? And so we'll have our Acceleration Academy again this year. Knock wood. Hopefully our grant gets accepted, and we'll be able to run that again. It's in the second and third week of August, and so that will be going on. But just things to know about K. I think our best advice to incoming parents is if you have any questions, just ask. You know, don't ever. We don't want parents to feel like they're in this alone. You know, and the things that they're curious about. I assure you, plenty of parents are curious about the same things, and you know how their children are developing. Are they making friends? How are things working in class? Are they progressing? You know, are they progressing where they should be progressing? You know, I mean, these are all struggles that we all have, and I had for me because my kids are a little older now. But that's so. I guess the best advice I would give to incoming parents is. Just keep in touch with us and keep talking with us. And I can assure you that kindergarten is one of the very best things we do.
Yeah. And I think we try to promote as much as possible. We can always do a better job, just the resources that we have in the district. And I think capitalize on what we have, just as Doug said.
all right, if you're the parent of a senior,
Probably the same thing. I mean, I think, and even before senior year, we're trying to think about when parents really need information for post high school planning and trying to get that down even into freshman, sophomore year. So I think our guidance staff is working really hard. You know, teachers, counselors. I think again, just use the resources, network with other parents. I think I feel like parents are pretty good in Wakefield about using each other too
True.
for
No, that's very
advice and
true.
networking, just to share experiences, what worked well for you. Our PTOs do a great job of bringing
Agree.
people together. That's usually, I mean, just in my experience as a parent too, I think talking to other parents who are in the same boat as you.
Yeah.
no, sounds good. No movement on like allowing popular podcast hosts to like sit in on kindergarten with their child. No, nothing on.
Only the most
yeah.
popular podcast
Well,
host,
it's true. So
right? And so
I don't know if your son would want you there.
Yeah, oh, God, no.
He
Okay.
might be the first to kick you out.
yeah, I would.
yeah.
It's all good. When I drop him out of preschool, I'm like, bye, I love you, like yelling it, like waiting for it to come back.
Doesn't even look back. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I'm dying. He doesn't.
Yeah.
So,
great.
all right, guys. I don't think I have anything else.
Okay.
Are we good?
So before we go, I feel like we should mention the high school, right?
Oh yeah,
And so just a very quick
yeah.
update.
It's all the construction. Oh,
Yeah.
did we forget? I'm driving by and there's a ton of construction
Yep.
going on.
I feel
Doug,
like-
good reminder.
I feel like we can't.
That's why I'm not the most popular host. 'Cause-
Excuse
I
me.
know the fence is coming up this week was a big. Was it
Yeah.
just the beginning of this week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you'll see in the teacher parking lot, the faculty parking lot, there's a kind of, we took down some trees and we've kind of fenced in an area, and that area is fenced in because it's going to be blacktopped. And so we're going to extend the existing parking just to expand our lot. And you'll also see on the baseball field on Walsh, you'll see we put a new, more appropriate home run fence. So kids can actually hit it out now.
Yeah.
Before you'd have to hit it 450 to get it over the fence. But we've kind of measured out and we've kind of made some changes to the field. But what we also did is we took back some of the what was unused area, and we're going to put a parking area there as well and a staging area for construction. And so those two areas are going to be developed in the coming weeks and months. And you'll see, if you drive by the high school, you'll see kind of heavy equipment taking out the ledge that's there. And so that's what's happening there. And right around April vacation, we'll be kind of putting up a construction fence around the Beasley Oval. And we'll be kind of starting our work there.
exciting.
They call it pad prep. So they'll be preparing the surface for where they're going to build the new high school, which is, you know what, this is 10 years in the making.
No, it's
This
so
is
true.
10 years in the
It's
making,
so
right?
true.
Because, and you forget about the past because it's the past, and you just look to the future, to problems that we're trying to solve. But there's a lot of people that have done a lot of work to help us get to this point. And so, yeah, and we're so eager to not only get it going, but to get it done and get into our new building, and
It's true.
we're excited.
It's true. It's going to be wonderful. And all right, guys. Well, thank you so much. Have a good holiday
you.
coming up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Much appreciated.
we'll talk soon.
All right.
Thank
All right.
you.
Sounds good.
Thank you, guys.